Recapping the New York Giants Week 8 game against the Seattle Seahawks, David Turner joins me next to break it all down. That's coming up on the LockedOn Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. Patricia Traina here with you, special guest David Turner, former NFL scout. And ladies and gentlemen, the New York Giants lost Week 8 to the Seattle Seahawks 27-13. Not a very good game, David.
Not at all. We saw a departure from what we had been seeing, especially on the offensive side of the ball, through the first 6 games or 7 games. So we'll break it down. We'll get into it, but I think there were some good strong points. I think we missed on some opportunities, and I think we got away from our identity on offense.
Absolutely. And let's start actually with the offensive side of the ball. The first 3 series, the Giants went 3 and out, but they didn't run the ball against one of the league's worst run defenses on the first 6 plays of the game, the first 2 series of what it amounted to. I didn't get that. Can you explain that to me?
This is where I think sometimes coaches get in their own heads and they go into tendency breakers, and they're like, okay, they're going to be loading the box. They have a bad defense. Let's go and start winning with our receivers. That'll loosen it up. That'll get Shaq going. That'll get Barkley going. The problem is right now who we have running routes, nobody in the league are fearful of them. So what we saw was Seattle roll up the coverage, play man defense on most of the calls today, and they were still able to load up the box and cover the receivers because, again, we're not very threatening right now at receiver. That all being said, it's just like, well, what are we going to do? We got to take the bye week to figure that out. But when you have Daniel Jones throwing 31 times, only 17 completions, I realized he didn't throw an interception, and but yet he didn't throw another touchdown or a touchdown. And to be honest, his longest completion today was 70 or 27 yards. I didn't see a lot of deep shots. I didn't see us trying to win downfield. I didn't see rub routes and things that we, have been doing. We had seen them do it. And then we didn't start working the Hudson and the tight ends until late in the game, when I thought that should have been a priority early because, again, they're loading the box, and when they load the box, look for the run. Often that frees up your tight ends because they're, the first instinct to the linebacker or safety covering that tight end is stop the run. Well, then that gives you ability to get behind them with that tight end. That didn't happen today. We didn't see it. So I'm a little disappointed we didn't try to invoke our will on the offensive line and move this defensive line. Like you said, it was the league's worst, and we didn't impose our will onto them early and try to break them. I mean, I know in the second half, Barkley had a couple runs that looked nice, but even that, it was still, he was working hard. And today was not the day the Giants maybe they might have been looking forward to the bye week. I don't know. It didn't look like the ones the Giants we had seen the last 3-4 weeks for sure.
How much did they miss Daniel Bellinger in this game?
I can't say they missed him a ton. I mean, again, they didn't go to their tight ends. They didn't even look for him, till late. I mean, Myrick was open on a couple plays, and he didn't get hit. They didn't call plays too much for the tight end. So while I like the young kid and I like it, I mean, they just didn't look for the other tight ends today. So I can't tell you they missed them. When we miss a player in the league and stuff, it's usually when you're calling plays and dialing them up, and the young guys or the guys in the position aren't making the plays. Then you're like, oh, well, we really miss this guy because we don't have that go-to tight end or that go-to receiver. Right now, I think you're seeing more the receivers being missed, and we don't have any threats there, I mean, at all right now. And they traded Kadarius Toney away, and we'll see how that works for him or not. But I mean, at least he had speed and he had playmaking ability. If he was on the field, I understand he had a lot of injuries. I get it, Giants fans, I understand. But that was a very impressive young receiver we traded away, and that's a position we don't have a lot of depth now. Going into the season, we thought we had depth. We're being exposed with our depth now.
So basically, they take away the run game, an opponent does. The Giants have no receiver. Their offensive line, I thought, was a lot shakier, especially in pass pro today. I think Jones was hit 8 times. I mean, granted, a lot of those hits came during, towards the end there, but, has the magic worn off for this team, or was it just never there? Were they just doing it with smoke and mirrors?
No, it wasn't smoke and mirrors. It was grit. I told you it was grit. We got to win with grit. Today, I thought we tried to be a little too pretty. We started passing the ball, throwing it all around. Get back to the run game, get back to play action, get the tight ends involved early, okay? And then that will help the outside receivers because the safeties won't be able to cover over top and everything in the middle will be tighter. So therefore, it'll give you some lanes by the numbers and outside the numbers and outside the hash marks in order to free up those outside receivers. But when you just ignore your own tight ends and your run game isn't going, they don't have to make any adjustments on defense. We didn't push them and press them to make adjustments. And I think the first 3 or 4 series to me really looked like they were trying to do tendency breakers when really they just need to know who they are, invoke their dominance on the offensive line and move forward. I mean, that's just it. You got to grind it out here, guys. You can't get into the pretty stuff, even when you get some false indicators that that stuff's there. I mean, people just are not scared of your receivers, so you have to grind it out, get the play action moving before going up there. And again, like you said, we had 3 sacks going into the last drive, then we ended up with 5 sacks on the game, I think, on Daniel Jones, a bunch of hits. But we also gave up 2 turnovers on punts, and that's just never a good scenario. You're not going to win a lot of ball games when you have 5 sacks and 2 turnovers on punt returns. That's supposed to be a change. One of them was really key in momentum. Like we Wink and the guys stopped them. They got a big sack on 3rd down, and then the very first punt fumble came back, and boom, now momentum swung the other way because they got some life back into them.
Yeah, the defense, I think, got a little winded there. But let me ask you about Daniel Jones and what you thought about the game he played.
I thought Daniel played well, not great. And, there were just times when he was not comfortable in the pocket. He missed throws. His eyes weren't crisp, as I would call it. It didn't look like he was seeing the field well this week. I don't know if he was comfortable with the plays or not. It was hard just because he did not look comfortable with what was being called. He threw some good balls and, did some things. But again, Daniel I can't get hard on him because the whole play sheet this week, the play calling to me was just funky. And, it's not like you got to build every week on what you've done before in the weeks past. And I didn't see that this week. And I didn't see us building on that run game, building on the success we saw with tight ends, last 3 weeks. I didn't see that, Robinson didn't get targeted, but 3 times. Like, if that's going to be your guy right now, he needs to be targeted 9 times. And he was targeted 3. So, and he caught 2 of the 3 balls and, he did what he could with them. Slayton targeted 6 times, caught 5. So, I think who we targeted, they made some plays, but again, I'm more critical of the coaching and play calling this week than I'm going to be of the players.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the offensive play calling, really a head scratcher. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about the loss. We'll talk a little bit about the defense. We'll delve a little bit more into the coaching. We'll be right back after this. Now, a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Life can be challenging and put a strain on our mental health with things that happen beyond our control. Seeking the expertise of a licensed professional to help guide us towards a resolution is the key to overcoming life's ups and downs. So if you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online. Get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey. And if you find that you're not a match to your assigned therapist, you can switch at any time. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Hey, Giant fans, thanks for making the Locked On Giants podcast your first listen today. For your second listen today, be sure to check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm Patricia Traina, joined by David Turner, former NFL scout, and we're talking about a Giants loss. It's been over a month since we've had to talk about a loss, but here we are, Giants losing 27-13 to the Seattle Seahawks. Just a funky type of game. The coaching just, I don't know, a real head scratcher. I think if I had to grade them, I'd give that coaching maybe a C minus for just overall. But I will say I thought Wink and the boys did a pretty good job. They held Ken Walker, 18 carries, 51 yards. Geno Smith threw for 212 yards and 2 touchdowns. But really, when the defense needed to step up and make a play, they did. I mean, the Adoree Jackson, the forced fumble, which gave the Giants offense a short field, that was a huge play. They forced a couple of field goals, which, kept them in the game. And really, towards the end, I just felt that the defense got winded and just got tired, and they just couldn't keep up after a while.
I agree with you on that because, look how many 3-and-outs we had this week. We had like 6 drives that were 3-and-outs for the Giants this week, whereas last week we were commending them on how many – they only had like 2 3-and-outs, right? And we were like, look at this, how many good jobs they were doing. Today we were not. We were getting stifled and stopped on offense, and it did demand the defense to be out there. But look at what – I know not everybody's going to be, excited about these numbers as I am, but – you had guys like Metcalf and Lockett today held for 55 and 63 yards. They each had their touchdown, yes. But at the same time, DK Metcalf was targeted 10 times and only got 6 balls. And Lockett had the key, fumble that Adoree Jackson got caused, and that led us to our touchdown, right? So, he was targeted 8 times and caught 5 balls. For those guys, usually if they're targeted 10 times, they're 8 or 9 catches and they're over 100 yards, right? Like that's those guys. Like they make plays and they make people miss, and they're big time receivers. They're, PPPers is a big time playmakers. So I was just like, I thought the defense did well. I thought they got winded, like you said. Later in the game, we saw drives extended, especially that last scoring drive. I think there were 7 plays, and Geno Smith threw for 75 yards just on that one drive, right? Mm-hmm. So that was late in the game, and Lockett, that's the one Lockett got his touchdown on for 33 yards. So again, it's winning in the NFL is super hard, but it's a team sport. You gotta complement each other. I thought the defense through the first 3 quarters played extremely well enough to win the game, and then late, they, like you said, they got winded, and the offense just couldn't get anything generating. So it was tough for the defense to be inspired to continue, But I will give a quick kudos to Jamie Gillian, because Jamie Gillian, you got to include the punter when you talk about defense, okay? You really have to include the punter. And the reason why is field positioning. Jamie Gillian had 6 punts for 322 yards today, an average of 53.7 yards, folks. Like, you understand the football field is only 100 yards long, right? This guy is kicking for half the field. He had 2 pinned inside the 20, only 1 touchback, and his longest today was 69 yards. Like, I worked with Shane Leckler in Oakland, and these are Shane Leckler type numbers. Understand, like, what Jamie is doing this year is giving our defense such long fields to work with. That helps the defense so much. because it gives them so many opportunities to get after the quarterback, to stop them, to get a turnover, to, go 3 and out or whatever. I mean, when you have short fields, it's so hard for the defense to be effective. This is giving the defense a huge advantage this whole year. And I'm talking special teams, and you hear excitement in my voice because, like I said, these are special numbers that we're seeing out of Jamie so far this year. And when you talk offense, you got to talk the kicker as well. Like, you got to give Graham Gano because he scores points. But when you're flipping the field like this and you're giving your defense long fields to work with, that punter deserves a kudos. So he
Yes.
gets my kudos.
Yes, he does. And kudos to him, because in the beginning he was a little inconsistent and he's worked at it. The Scottish hammer, as they call him, what a big leg he has. And yes, he was instrumental. But we talk about special teams, and this year, with very few exceptions, something has gone wrong with special teams. It just so happened this week that it cost them, because if Richie James doesn't turn that ball over twice, and it's funny, the second time when he was carrying it, I said, oh my God, he's swinging that ball. It's going to come loose. And I'm like, 2 hands on the ball, man, you're in traffic. And sure enough, it did. And, special teams, I just don't know what's going on with this group.
Again, like we said, you heard me all year. They got to hold their rush lanes. It's a discipline thing. Most defense or most special teams that are good are a strong, disciplined team. That's just the way it is. And we need to have a better disciplined team when it comes to special teams, because whether it's holding your rush lanes or not fumbling the ball, like the first one, he got hit in the back. Like, they didn't even hit the ball. I looked when they did the replay, they didn't even hit his elbow. Like, he got hit in the back and he coughed up the ball. Like, bro, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
I don't get that at all. I've never seen that before in my life, where you got hit in the back and you cough up the football. So, again, we need a better disciplined football team when it comes to special teams, whether it's holding the lanes or holding the ball or making the open field tackle, whatever it is, we need to lock it up, because we are not good enough to give up a third of the plays on special teams like that to just random acts of kindness. If they, you know what I mean? Like, we need to make sure we're making tackles, we're making plays when we're supposed to, and it's going to be through discipline that you'll see that happen.
Yeah, indeed. But, really, just to go back to the offense, how much did they miss Evan Neal and Ben Bredesen?
Big time. That right tackle was nervous as all get out today. Like, he had
false starts.
two false starts, and they were both on, I think, second down on one. Maybe both were on second down, and that caused the second downs to be longer third downs. So, that kind of situation is huge. Obviously, the offensive line is still working through their issues and, trying to get healthy and get right. But no, that right tackle position today was not steady at all. So it did affect how we game planned and we called the game for sure.
And then not having Bellinger, who's, probably their best blocking tight end, that compounded to it. And, you throw in the loudness of Lumen Field, and it was just a perfect storm for disaster.
Well, Bellinger is a great young talented tight end. Don't get me wrong, but I thought our backups blocked well. I mean, when you watch it, I didn't see them getting blown by and stuff. I mean, I like them. I think we have a nice little group there. Bellinger's obviously the lead dog, the top one. He's better than the rest. But we had a solid game out of him today. And again, my point here is, we didn't even see a lot of that wildcat formation in the second half. I saw them run it in the first half. We didn't see a lot of what I call pony, where you put both Breida and Shaq Barkley in the backfield together. I saw a couple things that they didn't build off of. Like, there was stuff that we liked those formations. We liked them. I know the loudness of the field and the crowd there does make certain things difficult to do, but running pony with both those guys out there, I mean, that was awesome. I mean, when we did that a couple weeks ago, we got a lot of yards off of it. So I would love to see them line Barkley and Breida in the backfield up together. And, even like take a page out of Shane Walden's playbook today. They put Lockett in the backfield and caught him on that little out route, right, on that fourth down situation. So why can't we do that with Robinson? He did stuff like that in college. He ran the ball. He did the Z flies and things in college like that. So you got to be able to move them around, adapt, be creative. And I didn't see a lot of creativity today from us at all.
Yeah, indeed. All right. Now we're going to take our final break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the trade deadline, which is coming up. We're going to talk about what the Giants have to do over these next 2 weeks when they get back in the lab. So let's take the break. When we come back, we'll break it all down. Hey, Giant fans, whether you're looking to pop the question or have a milestone coming up that you want to celebrate, Blue Nile can help you make your celebrations even more memorable. Blue Nile offers the largest selection of independently graded diamonds and pieces priced significantly below traditional retailers, and they've helped millions of couples create their perfect engagement ring, including the one that's worn by yours truly. Use their easy online tools to create the perfect engagement ring. Or if you're looking for that special one-of-a-kind piece to commemorate a special occasion, Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7 available via phone or chat to help you find the best gift, no matter what your budget. Shop stress-free with Blue Nile's 100% satisfaction guarantee. All Blue Nile orders are insured and shipped for free in discreet packaging. They also offer overnight shipping if you're in a rush. So go ahead and make your moments sparkle with Blue Nile. Go to BlueNile.com and use code LOCKEDON to save $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. Again, that website is Blue Nile, BlueNile.com/LockedOn to save $50 off your purchase of $500 or more. BlueNile.com, code LOCKEDON. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast. Patricia Traina with you. David Turner's with us here today. And we're talking about a loss. Listen, to think that the Giants were going to win straight out really wasn't, realistic, I think. And this game coming in, I know I've said before that this one kind of concerned me. I didn't know how the Giants would match up. Some of you are like, oh, you're nervous every week. And I'm like, yeah, with good reason, because the other team gets paid too. And the Seahawks have been playing pretty well. But let's kind of spin ahead here, David. The trade deadline is November 1st, which will be tomorrow, actually. What would you do if you're the Giants? Do you stand pat, or if you're Joe Shane, do you maybe look to add somebody thinking, okay, we're still kind of in it, even though Dallas and Philly won and now the Giants are in third place? Or do you just stand pat and say, I'm going to take the draft picks and just go crazy next year?
No, I mean, I'm an aggressive guy. I don't know Joe real well. I don't think him and I share that personality, trait. I'm a very aggressive guy. So for me, I'm looking to add to this team where I can and what I can, and at any option, any way, any turn. So I'm exploring and seeing who's being shopped and what they're asking for, and I'm listening. I'm definitely listening. I know the Kadarius Toney trade got them some draft picks and things, so I get that. But again, it was an opportunity for me to where I was like, oh, that doesn't get you better right now, and you're in the hunt right now. Like, I get for building for the future, I totally do, but you're in a team and a division where you're in the hunt right now. So I don't know right now which receivers would be available around the league that would fit this system of offense and everything. I think there's several that would fit, but are they available, and what's the price tag on them, right? So that's something you have to look into and think about. You also have to look into, what would you get for other people on your team, and who's expendable on your team, to maybe trade somewhere you might feel you have some depth, and I don't think we have much depth, so don't get me wrong here. To trade a player for a player, or a player with a pick in exchange for some other picks, and do all the math that way. If I look at us offensive line wise, we don't have depth to trade anybody, and I don't think we're going to be able to get anybody of quality to come in and help us in a trade. So that to me is off the shopping list. I'd listen, but I don't think I would ever trade anybody right now because we're not really depth there. Anybody from our defensive line, I wouldn't trade because that's a group that I want to see play together and groom and work together, and that's a group I'd like to keep together for a while and not mess with it. I don't think our secondary is deep enough to trade anybody, obviously, or trade for. I don't think any of our receivers are going to bring a price tag like Tony or even better. So unless you're looking to get rid of Barkley, Jones, Williams, or Lawrence, like those four to me would only be attractive, on the trade block right now from the Giants. And those core four, I wouldn't see them wanting to get rid of at all. So, I don't think any players leaving our building will be one that will watch, bags pack, and go after Tony's trade. But coming in, I would be calling a few of these teams and asking them about some receivers.
Yeah, amongst them that have been kind of linked, Jerry Jeudy of Denver, who Dable coached at Alabama, Chase Claypool over in Pittsburgh, KJ Hamler has been mentioned. I don't think DJ Moore down in Carolina is an option, too expensive. But the three that I just mentioned, Jeudy, Hamler, and Claypool, still on their rookie deals. It's just a matter of what what their current teams want for them. I think Jeudy might be too expensive. And if you're Joe Shane, you're probably not going to want to give up a day one or day two pick if you can help it.
I don't think Jeudy would cost you a day one pick.
Day two for sure.
Huh? Yeah, day two
Probably
for
day
sure.
two, like
That's
a
what I was gonna
second
say.
rounder, I would think.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I was like, now that the day ones are first rounds only. Back when I was in the league, day one was 1 through 3.
Yep.
But right now, I don't think you would get a trade for a first rounder for Jeudy. And I'll be honest, if I'm sitting over there and I'm George Payton, I'm not trying to trade anybody. I mean, they're really a quarterback away from doing some damage over there. So I mean, they thought Russell was going to be the guy, and that was going to be it. But that team's put together pretty well. So if I'm Peyton, I'm not trying to do too much on that end. Hamler is interesting, but he's a smaller receiver again. He's not a big guy, and I think this team needs a bigger presence. They need a 6'3" type presence, in order to go, do some things. Now, one that's interesting to me. There's a few that are interesting that I think people might part ways with and have you. And like you said, the Pittsburgh Claypool one, like if they're really willing to trade him or get rid of, move on from him because Pickens is coming on and they still have Johnson. And that would be interesting to me because I think that type of receiver right now in Dabo's offense is what's missing. A bigger physical receiver is what's missing. And somebody that Robinson can play in conjunction with. So that would be interesting to me. That the names you mentioned, that one I would explore.
What about, let's talk about, getting back into the lab now. The coaching staff has the upcoming week. What do they really need to address in order to make sure that they remain competitive? And above all, how can they get this offense off to a faster start? Because, I mean, this week, wow, you talk about snail's pace. I mean, that's probably, to me, one of the number one issues they have to figure out. But what else do they have? What do they have to prioritize, you think, in the coming week? Because the roster is pretty much what it is. What can they change and what do they need to prioritize?
NFL is a game of matchups. It really is. Every week, the best offenses learn and know the matchups that will work best for them, the formations to put them in successful matchups in order to utilize their personnel on offense. And defense, the best defenses are learning how to take those advantages away from offense, right? So if I'm the offensive staff, I'm going into the lab. How do we get Robinson the ball 9 times a game? How do we get Shaq Barkley running the ball at least 19 times a game? And it doesn't have to be all in traditional formations. It could be sweeps. It could be this. It could be that. But those two need to be right now. Those are the playmakers on offense. And then also you have to look at Myrick, getting him into the passing game, Hudson, making sure Slayton gets more targets because that's what you got right now. That's what you got. So, I mean, you can't have 5s across the board for targets and be happy with it. You know what I mean? You need a top 2 that are getting 8 to 10 to 12 targets a game. and hanging your hat on those 2 or 3 players, and that's just what it is. And if you're not adding anybody, then it's going to be Robinson, and it's going to be Barkley, and it's going to be Slayton. Like that's it. Hudson mixed in there with a little bit, and when Bellinger gets back, him mixed in there a little bit, right? That's what you got to do. Matchup wise, I mean, I think we coming out of the bye week, we have a couple favorable matchups. So we can maybe experiment a little bit, look into the situations, and play around with it a little bit on how to do that. But then after that, we're really in the grind of this season, and the next 7 games after those 2 are the heart of our season of where we're going to go. If we're going to sit here talking about draft picks come December, or if we're going to be talking about playoffs. So, for me, now I'm in the lab on offense. I'm like, all right, look, like you just said, this is who we got. We can't say that we're going to get anybody else. This is it. How are we going to win next week? How are we going to beat? Was it the Texans we're coming out of the bye week on? So how are we going to do that, right? What's been effective of the Texans? What hasn't worked? What does? Let's run some scenarios. Let's get this locked in. But I would be running those scenarios for the next 2 weeks, taking this week to really digest what works for us, who and what plays work best for us, and then move forward in the decision making going into that Texan game on how to get them the ball the most, and then hopefully then after that, who do we have? Detroit after that.
I think
So we,
so.
so we
I
got
think
2
it's
favorable defenses in a row to work with. Now Detroit can put up points, so Wink's going to have to bring it. Like that game, he's going to have to bring it. And don't sleep on Houston. Houston's okay. Like they're not playing awesome, consistently awesome, but they got a nice young little running back, new rookie running back. They still have some playmakers over there. So, Wink's going to have to make sure we get healthy on defense. We're going to have to use this bye week to get healthy on defense, get those boys lined up right, and then, really utilize the defense over those 2 weeks to shut down these offenses, which will be hard against Detroit. Not so hard, in my opinion, against the Texans, but we can't sleep on them.
yeah,
Like today
absolutely.
should have been a win. It really should have been a win. Let's be honest. Today should have been a win. Texans should be a win. Detroit, we have an opportunity to win. So we drop this one. We need the next 2 because going
Mm,
into that back end of the schedule,
a lot of
a
NFC East.
lot of NFC East, and we need momentum to do that. And the only way you do momentum is by winning and having success on the field.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and remember, I think next week the Dallas Cowboys also have their bye. So the Giants and Cowboys are on a bye. Philly has a chance to widen their league. I mean, look, they're not going to realistically, the Giants, I don't think we're ever going to catch Philly, but at best, if we're talking playoffs, we're talking a wild card.
But if
And
you look at the schedule, you line up the Giants' schedule and the Eagles' schedule. The Giants' schedule wasn't as hard and still isn't as hard as the Eagles. So the Giants have chances to catch them, but like today's game is one they needed to win.
they,
Texans game is one they have to win. Detroit's game is one they have to win. So when they get into these NFC East battles, if they drop one, they drop one in the division, but at least they're up on the play card. You know what I
right.
mean?
Yeah.
So those are you have to win what you have to win. I think we saw a little bit of focus on the bye week, and we're going to get through this game and yada yada, all those other sayings.
Mhm.
But if we come out of this bye week and we take the Texans game, and then we swing that into the pendulum into momentum for the Detroit game, we'll be in a good spot going into that stretch run.
Well, fingers crossed, because I know when the Giants win, it's exciting. I know a lot of people smiles, nothing like a victory Monday. This week, no victory Monday, but they have 2 weeks to kind of think about it, get back in the
So we're
lab,
six and
see some.
two. Did you think we would be 6-2 going into the bye?
True.
Being honest. Did you
Me?
think? Yeah, you.
It's funny. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and look at what I predicted for the start, but I don't think I predicted 6-2. I think I might have predicted 4-4. I
I
know
think
that's
you
just.
and I were right around
I
five
think
four
4-4,
start
five
and
and
four
four,
and four. Right in
something like
those
that.
like ranges. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When we look through the games, we were like through the first 9, we were going to be either 5-4 or 4-4 through the first 8. You know what I mean? We're going to be right
Well,
in
they're
that range.
playing with house money now.
But
So,
we're at
yeah.
6-2. We had opportunity. Like we're 6-2, and we were 6-1 before this game here today. So when you look at the whole situation, we're well further ahead than we thought we would. We just got to remember our identity, which is run the football, grind it out, get the play action, work some tight ends into the situation in the first and second quarter to open up and help the receivers outside. We need to be able to help the receivers outside, and you're only going to do that with the run game and tight ends. So you got to get those two pumping early in the game and moving forward. Hopefully they find ways to do that and maximize the matchups.
Fingers crossed. All is not lost. It's a disappointing loss this week, but 6-2, not bad. If they can pull the next 2 games out and then roll in with momentum, like you said, still plenty of things to be happy about if you are a Giant fan. So we'll see what the next couple of days bring with the trade deadline. I don't think that Joe Schoen's going to make any moves, but then again, I didn't think they would trade Kadarius Toney or be able to trade Kadarius Toney, and they were able to do that.
Well, if you
So
remember, little birdie said something in preseason about them not liking Kadarius Toney and wanting to trade him.
I seem to remember that exactly. Can't remember who it was,
I
but
can't remember who that person. It was a little birdie who just came on the show and said something about that.
yeah, I seem to recall that. So kudos to that little birdie who knew what he was talking about. So, all right, my friend. As always, appreciate the input, the great stuff as always. Giant fans, thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. And if you're watching on YouTube, your first watch of the day, be sure to keep it here all week long on the LockedOn Giants podcast. I am going to do shows all week long, even though we're on a bye. I have interviews coming up. Tomorrow's Twitter Tuesday. You know what to do about Twitter Tuesday, how to participate. Plenty of good stuff coming up. Locked On Giants Live is going to be later this week. We'll probably do it on Friday night at 7:30, but stay tuned for details on that. So plenty to come. Thank you for joining us. For David Turner, I'm Patricia Traina. We'll talk to you tomorrow, Giant fans.